Good morning, everybody. It is 9:30 here. I'm working on my paper and looking ahead at what the next module is. So I completed and submitted the Module 3 assignment, and I've worked ahead for Module 4 peer workshop. That's a dyslexia. I do that a lot. I talk about backwards. Hold on a second. No pictures of me today. I look like crap. I didn't get a lot of sleep. I was up till 11 o'clock. And then my dogs got me up at 5. Not a lot of sleep. But anyway, I had a really profound experience last night. Um, I may share it maybe on TikTok. I did share actually a little bit on TikTok. Um, I don't know. Not has nothing to do with school, but I thought it was interesting. I actually was describing it to my daughter. So, um, I was listening to Moonlight Sonata, uh, and by Beethoven. I started experiencing these crazy ranges of emotions. I almost felt like I was losing my damn mind. I've always been a very sensitive person. I'm easily moved to tears. Um, but I've always thought it was due to my past. All the childhood trauma and the things I've gone through, the grieving, the people who have died, and always having open wounds and things being close to the surface. But now I'm thinking, hmm, maybe God just made me this way. Anyway, getting off the topic, what I experienced was like a somatic response to music and something that's called aesthetic overwhelm. Never heard of that before. I actually was talking to ChatGPT. Now, he could have been hallucinating this, or it could have been hallucinating this. I'm going to read to you what he said, or it said. It said many classical works are famous for provoking the exact kind of intense, uncontrollable emotional response you experienced. Tears, chills, gasps, even physical sensation like warmth, shaking, or breathlessness. These pieces tend to share qualities within the Moonlight Sonata's third movement: emotional tension, powerful dynamics, harmonic instability, and profound expressive depth. Now, I highly suggest you listen to this piece, but do so when you're by yourself, because if you do have the same kind of response I have, people are going to think you're losing your gourd. I was crying. I was laughing. I was shaking. I was gasping for air. I felt like I was on an emotional roller coaster, but it was so healing and so profound that it made me realize that God used that man to write that music. I mean, he was going deaf when he wrote this piece. I don't know if he was completely deaf yet, but you know, music therapy is something that's not touched upon much. I've not really heard people talk about this in the healthcare field, but I really believe that this is a source of healing for people if you are receptive to that kind of thing. Not meaning mentally, but I mean neurologically receptive. Because the reason that this kind of thing happens, usually you see it occur from what I researched in people who have low dopamine and serotonin levels. It can make you go either way, actually. It can make you either not feel anything and be very stoic, or it can make you incredibly sensitive to the changes in uh, music that elicit this kind of response. Anyway, I had asked my daughter to pray for me because I had been so stressed about school and so stressed about work. There's a lot going on in my life. Work a lot of hours, lots of hours, and it's very stressful. And throughout the day, I'm forgetting stuff constantly from the stress. I have to write things down or I forget it. And I work on my memory, so it's not like, uh-oh, early Alzheimer's or dementia. No, that's not what's going on. I study Italian every night. Not a lot, 5 minutes, but I'm telling you, it's really good for you. And then I play the piano every day, like 5 minutes. So and I know it's that not that because I can write a decent paper. Just takes a lot of work. So if I had dementia, I think other areas of my life would be affected. But anyway, I got the heater on. That's what that noise was. It's cold. Getting off topic again. I do get distracted, so forgive me if I wander off into left field. What was the point I was making? So, if you have those uh, chemicals in your brain that are kind of on the lower side, and you swing the right way, which is makes you more sensitive to this music, this can be very healing for you because it like unlocks something. I don't know what. I can't even explain it. It just unlocks inhibitions in you. It's not even something that is a thought process. The music basically goes from your ear to your brainstem to your limbic system, which is your emotions, and then cortex, which is the interpretation of what you're hearing. It doesn't think about it, it reacts and responds. And it's because I do have those low levels. I think that I'm more prone to that. And I actually asked, since I realized this was a source of healing for me, I am going to try to listen to a piece every night because I still have locked up emotions, locked up feelings, even within my body from what I've gone through that can be released through this. And I asked ChatGPT to give me a list of pieces that are known to trigger these type of responses. And I can't even pronounce the name of these artists are these classical musicians. Um, Rachmaninoff, it's Piano Concerto Number 2. Um, Tchaikovsky, Symphony Number 6. Chopin, Nocturne in C minor. Yeah, I'm saying that wrong. Samuel Barber, Adagio for strings. Beethoven Symphony Number 7. Movement 2. Mahler Symphony Number 5. Chopin Ballade, a ballade number 1 in G minor. I mean, I've never heard of any of these songs. I don't know what they sound like. I listen to classical music probably twice in my life, just trying to, because I know it's good for you. Like I want to be a well-rounded person. And so I, I listened to it, but I was cleaning the house, so I wasn't really paying attention. And I don't know why the heck this hit me like it did last night, but it did. So anyway, that's neither here nor there. Just giving you a little background on me. Uh, I'm not just posting about school, I'm posting about my life experiences. But I realized listening to that God really touched Beethoven to produce that beautiful, beautiful, beautiful piece that was an expression of what he was going through, losing his hearing. He was grieving for a woman who didn't return the love he had for her. He, had a hard life and he died young. Really sad. You ever wonder why there's so many incredibly talented people that die young or commit suicide? Well, I can tell you, it's because the way that God made them, not to kill themselves, but so incredibly sensitive and responsive to emotional things that probably most people could handle when bad things happen. But for somebody who's incredibly sensitive like that, it's overwhelming. It's like your world is over when you have things that most people can get through. You can't, and you can't see past what you're feeling at that moment. And that's why those kind of things happen. I hope I'm not getting blocked for saying this. But anyway, just look at all the musicians, all the artists, that died young, and you'll see a pattern there. I was almost there myself. Thank God. God gave me the grace to survive. I have a purpose and a plan. He has a plan for me. I don't even know what the heck it is, honestly. I feel like I'm not doing anything for him, but I keep being reminded that I'm still touching the people who are around me. Maybe not in the way I thought I would, but we do each have an impact on those around us. You don't have to be on a platform to make a difference in somebody's life. Really, we're supposed to touch people's lives that we encounter, people God puts in your path, you know, in any way that you can, by showing kindness, by showing love, by being sensitive to what's going on around you and reaching out to people who need help. So that's where my faith comes in to play with, even going back to school. Thank God I have a faith, because I don't know how I would have gotten through the things that I've gotten through and have gotten through if it wasn't for him. Anyway, so I just wanted to look at some videos to kind of look ahead. Um, let's see. Let's see. So we're here yesterday. Is this it? Oh, this was all in SNHU. I started searching just under SNHU, so let's see if I can find.
Introducing grammar. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my channel. Today, I want to show.
Not that. Okay. The people that I was listening to yesterday, instructors.
Getting on our.
Oh, I'm on the wrong one. That's why. Not wrong account. Ugh, that's a horrible picture of me. Switch accounts. How do I switch accounts? That's when I was really overweight. I actually just got on the scale this morning. I lost more weight. I'm like starting to get hanging skin into my neck though. Wait, hold on a second. Home. I think this is where you switch. Switch account. There we go. All right. Here we go. Let's see if I can find. Here's the history. I said it to my husband. He thinks I look beautiful. He's a retard. Okay, so here is this. I like this one here. Well, not her. Where is it? This one here. Krista Hilton. So I suggest that you guys find her because she goes over the modules. So this is what's coming up next. You guys can watch 4 because I know you haven't worked ahead. I have, thank God. I have to because I don't have time during the week. I started before school even started. So if you want to keep on track and give yourself plenty of time to get the tasks done right, you've got to start ahead of time, guys. So here is module 5 information. So let's listen to it together. I'm going to open this up.
Welcome to module 5.
Here we go.
This week is a big step in the overall writing process.
Feel free to comment.
You're going to convert your outline into a full draft. You've actually done the hardest work last week in preparing the draft because you had to plug in all the parts to complete that outline. And in doing so, you actually developed the main parts of the persuasive essay supported by research. You wrote a thesis, you developed body paragraphs that included topic sentences with key points that support your argument from the thesis, as well as including research in the forms of quotes or paraphrases, and then presenting information to your audience about how the research supports your argument. And so when you've gathered all of that, it's really pretty easy to go from that to the draft because you do have all the parts in place. Now you just have to convert to paragraph form. And so that's what
put it in the format.
Module focuses on. So as usual, I'm going to walk you through the module, highlighting some things that
I'm going to work on the document.
Okay. Hopefully you are always, if you're watching
Hey,
the video,
Caleb,
clicking on the announcements.
my uniform's in the just everybody need to wash
the introduction
the jacket separate from everything.
Cold
water for all of it.
Focus for the module with some specifics about what the objectives are, why you need to learn those things, and some tips. as well as the module at a glance, which again is a step-by-step plan to move through this module. It's helpful if you use this as a checklist to come back to when you think you finished all your work. You can come back and review this to make sure that you've actually done everything that you needed to do before moving on. Next, we have a little bit more in-depth discussion of the focus of this particular module, the Module 5 guide.
What
And
is the
there
draft?
are some good questions being asked here. First of all, why do we do a draft?
Mhm.
And really for several reasons. One is to make sure that you have a complete essay, that in going from the outline to the draft, you have all the parts that you should have. I'm going to suggest that you review that before you actually go to the draft form, to the paragraph form, because it's easier to make changes while it's still in an outline rather than making changes once it's in paragraph form. Research and my experience has actually shown that students are reluctant to make changes once they're in the paragraph form. So I encourage people to wait as long as possible to move to the draft for that reason.
Wait, what'd you say? Hold on a second. I'm not paying attention. Ah,
To make changes.
let me stop that.
Feedback.
That sounded important. Let's listen again.
You have all the parts that you should have. I'm going to suggest that you review that before you actually go to the draft form, to paragraph form.
What parts? What parts?
Because it's easier to make changes.
Well, this is the thing. This is what I say. I think that what she's talking about is how, how it's like, each paragraph is set like this. Don't worry about the format. So keep everything together. So if you have to correct anything within there, if you're missing anything, you're not having to reformat it every 5 minutes, because I've done that. Been there, done that. Don't do it.
While it's still in an outline, rather than making changes once it's in paragraph form. Research and my experience has actually shown that students are reluctant to make changes once they're in the paragraph form. So
Not me.
I encourage people to wait as long as possible to move to the draft for that reason. When it's still in the outline, people are just more willing to make changes, to use the feedback from the workshop last week to make changes in order to improve the overall effectiveness of the argument and the essay before putting it into paragraphs. So
that's the thing I think that most people are not realizing when you're writing this. So the whole purpose of this class is to show you step by step how you do a research paper. So every article that you submit prior to the next one has all of that information that you're going to plug into the next paper and then the following paper. And then along the way, you're refining things and adding stuff. But you already have a bulk of what you need just from the beginning. And so you're just digging deeper and deeper, and then you're formatting it and you're building your article with support and data. So don't feel like every time you have a next module that you are starting from scratch, because you're not. Okay, listen.
Things to consider, including your audience, that you need to be tailoring your essay, your argument to the particular audience that you're writing to. Remember that it's not me, and it's not really your classmates either. It's an audience that has interest or investment directly in your issue.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to think about a group of people who, for instance, if you were giving a speech in an auditorium, who would be the people in the audience? Who would buy tickets to come and hear you talk about this issue? That's who you're really writing to, and you want to make choices based on that audience. What is it going to take to convince them? What kind of language will they understand? What kind of approach will be most persuasive?
Here's one thing. So I don't know, the paper that I just completed, I do mention the Joint Commission, which is not mentioned in any of my articles. So I don't know if that's going to be considered a faux pas, if I need to provide citation for the Joint Commission, add that to my sources. I haven't gotten that far. So I'll look into that later.
And the key questions and key takeaways will help you kind of review those things. Next, we have the resources page. And as always, the resources page is probably the most important page in the module. It begins, as always, with textbook readings.
I know what I could do. I'm just thinking about it. I don't have to mention Joint Commission. I just have to say in governing bodies, blah, blah, blah. Okay, I got my answer. Sorry.
First one, chapter 3, is not an entire chapter, it's just part of a chapter, so that one's fairly short. Then in chapter 8, we have some review and then some new information about writing arguments. We've already been exploring that from the very beginning of this course, because that was the focus of the first discussion that we had, research, and then looking at using research to support an argument. So be sure that you click on each one of these. One that, let's see, there's the Tableton and Open Letter to a Protester is an example of a real world argument. So that's always particularly helpful. And then examining models, the refutation argument, which is also important to make you aware of how that works and give you an opportunity to use this as an assessment of the counter arguments that you have so far in your outline.
That's another thing I just thought of. I'm thinking about my conclusion. So when you write a conclusion on your paper, you're basically rewriting your thesis at the bottom and showing how if you do this and it's met, blah, 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 this will happen. If it's not, da, da, da. One thing I didn't include in my paper that I need to touch on is that the question was about whether the 4-day work week was a viable option for outpatient surgical setting. It is if those things are addressed, but I don't think I worded that in my paper. So this is why it's good to go away from what you're writing, excuse me, and then look at it again. So let me just make a mental note to myself, or actually, so governing bodies, da da da. So instead of mention in the Joint Commission, I think because everything that you say is not your opinion, it's got to be documented. And then conclusion, 4-day work week is a viable option if da da da. Okay, there we go. I feel better. Sorry.
Chapter 49 talks about introductions and conclusions. We haven't really looked at specific parts of the essay in terms of developing those up until this point, so it's important to read that to be sure that you fully understand their function. You actually wrote one in the outline, both an introduction and a conclusion. This is a good chance to make sure that you're doing it in a way that'll be effective. 2. In chapter 51 and 52,
There's a bunch of stuff to read, huh?
One that applies to your particular citation,
The APA.
System that you're using. So if you're using,
So I'd be down here.
Chapter 1.
So 51.
Using APA, you'll do chapter 52. This is really, really important.
By the way, guys,
I
I did purchase a physical copy of the APA manual. Do I know how to use it? Hell no. I'm not going to curse. This stuff is so complex. Oh my God. I think as I go along and learn, I'll figure it out. But I also bought myself a grammar book because I don't remember what I learned in school. So as I'm writing the paper, I'm having to correct my grammar, but I'm understanding why what I did was wrong. So just don't feel like you're dumb because you're not going to remember everything. And it's okay to use sources to help you get it right.
I'm going to click on the things in chapter 51, examples that show MLA, just to make you aware of what is in here. It's really important that you know where to find this information, especially this week when you start to do some assessment of.
She likes MLA. She's picked on that before.
and giving, attributing
Won't like
terms
it,
of
Malay.
those to the sources that they come from. So it starts off with
I wish you were showing APA.
general information about what it looks like. And the most important
See, there's no quotation marks
thing
next to the
look at on this page,
citation.
right?
Hope I quoted my stuff right for my paper. I hope.
Next one. These are just 3 different ways to get the information that's needed to give full credit incorporating quote or paraphrase into your own writing. Examples are probably the best thing you can have in terms of learning how to use the citation system correctly. Use them like templates. There's no one method or one. That's why
this is the thing that maybe it's different in MLA, but in APA format, the way that you cite something is going to be different depending on what the source is. So if it's a book versus an article, it's going to look different.
That information is provided to the reader about where this quote came from. So the first 2 are 2 different ways to introduce the information. The things that have to be here are the author's last name and exactly where it came from. In MLA, you have the author's name and the page and paragraph number without a year. In APA, it's different, so keep that in mind that you have to just look at your system and make sure you're using it correctly for your system. That information can appear in the sentence.
This lady has been very helpful.
And that information,
I'm going to comment that,
directs the reader to your references page or your works cited page in MLA. At the end, where everything is listed in alphabetical order by author's last name. And the purpose of this is so that your reader can go directly to the original source to look at it themselves if they choose to. So when we have the full information, we can look up the article or the book or whatever it is, and I can go to that page number and find the quote or the paraphrase that you've included, just in case the reader wants to know more or they want to check out the credibility of your source. So this is an example of what it is you're going to do in your paragraphs. In the outline, you already inserted the quote or the paraphrase, but you haven't yet been asked to provide citation. So that's part of the transition this week. We'll be adding those citations and doing them correctly. So again, there's MLA and there's APA. So look at the one that applies to you. Let me click on a few more things. And this time I'll do it on the APA just so you can see the difference.
Yeah. Oh, good.
There's also a page that shows you that list at the end for each citation system. So the MLA, it's done one way. For APA,
I have a lot
it's
of
done
reading to
another
do
way.
today.
They have different headings on that page. So it's important that you
look at that.
take a look at the one that's applying to your system.
See, article in a journal, article with a DOI.
And this is meant to
this
be
is great.
a place to look for information to make sure that your
one author, 2 authors, 3 or more authors.
Have hot links that lead to the information.
Oh, I can check my paper now because I'm not sure if I did it right.
On the references page, you're going to give complete location information again, so the reader can go find it.
It's great.
So if you have one author, you click on that.
Nice.
Shows the example of the content.
Very nice.
In your list for one author. Notice, this corresponds directly to the list at the top. So what you want to do at this stage of the game is, first of all, read the entire list. Look at all the different possibilities. You don't necessarily have to click on all of them.
Interesting.
In fact, that would be wasting your time at this
television program.
You know where to find this information.
That's so strange because I've never considered those as sources, but I guess they are.
In this case, APA reference list or an MLA, the works cited here. Then you can click on it. It takes you to the example and shows you exactly what the content needs to be on that page. Electronic sources is really important because most of our research in this class has come from databases that include articles that were from electronic sources. So again, run down the list, be sure that you know where to find these things. So when you're ready to actually start doing it in your draft, you'll know where to go look. Spots gives you guidelines for how the page itself should look. This is really important to look at as well because
format, there we go.
Format that has to be done on the page for it to be correct, and the expectation is that you will be doing that correctly by the end of the course.
Oh God.
Stay in APA, we have a way.
That's the one thing that scares me is that, okay, so we're being gently guided through this course. God help me to retain what I'm learning because I'm going to need it. I'm going to be writing a lot of papers for nursing. I'm going to need it desperately. I don't know if you guys feel that way or not, but it's important. Okay. Sorry, I'm talking again.
On formatting. And this is for the entire essay. There's just some little differences, but they are important. There's a difference in APA, you're going to have an actual title page, whereas in MLA, you just have a header, the top left of the first page. So again, depending on your system, be sure that you're reading all the information. The expectation is that when you submit the draft,
margin should be at least 1 inch for both sides.
For the entire essay. And then finally, both for MLA and APA, the samples.
That's great.
I love samples.
Me
really
too.
Helps me to be able to see what it is I'm trying to accomplish. And that's why the course includes the exemplars. This has an entire essay note. Here's the title page because it's APA, and we've got
title in bold.
Got annotations on the sides that give you additional information about the formatting, the information, the function of the particular part, so that you can become fully aware of all the content and how it should look. So be sure that you scroll through the entire sample. Includes a references page so you can see how that's formatted. And then there's also samples for MLA. Next, we have another really helpful resource, the essay draft checklist. I love checklists because it gives you an opportunity to make sure that everything's working the way it should before you move on to submitting it. I like this one because it asks questions, and you should use this and go down the list and answer every single question. And by doing so, you're more likely to have.
I'm going to pause it for a second so you can read this. So does your essay contain at least 3 credible sources, including 2 from your independent research? If not, revisit the Shapiro Library databases. Content. Do you have at least 1 supporting source per body paragraph? Paragraph. I can't speak English today. Are your sources integrated in a way that clearly references the author's idea and then connects back to your own? Organization. Do you have an introduction that includes your thesis? Do you have multiple body paragraphs? Do you have a conclusion that ties your ideas together? Do you include transitions between paragraphs? That's what I was thinking. I need to look at my transitions. I keep trying to do other stuff here and I can't. Let me go back to my note. All right. Look at transitions. Okay, so essay notes. Okay. Okay, do you have, where are we at? Okay, does your thesis clearly take a persuasive stance on the topic that is complex and arguable? Does each body paragraph start with a sentence that directly supports your thesis? Do your sources clearly address your topic? Are your sources free from bias that might alienate your audience? Do you employ a blend of, how do you say this, ethos, pathos, and logos tailored to your audience? I don't even know what that is. I have to look that up.
Thing that we-
She might talk about it.
One
I
of
know
the
one's appealing to your emotions. That's logical. I don't know what the pathos is.
It gives me the opportunity to take a look at a complete draft and give you feedback. If parts of your draft are missing or you haven't made an attempt to do citation, then I can't give you feedback that will help you make improvements before you turn in the final essay. So this checklist helps you ensure that you have done and considered everything that you need to before submitting it for my feedback. The questions are very specific. They give you, for instance, here, the first one under research, does your essay contain at least 3 credible sources, including 2 from your independent research? Remember, you can use one, or you should use one from the project documents list, and then 2 from the libraries, or a minimum of 2 from the libraries. And it says if you haven't, revisit the Shapiro Library databases. And along with that, work with a librarian to save yourself time and frustration. So answer each one of these, be honest with yourself, make sure that you have actually considered the checklist and addressed all of these issues. If you do, then you'll have a draft that is going to be working on all cylinders. It's going to be ready, to receive feedback that will help you make final changes for the submission of the final essay. The other reason for submitting a full draft is that we're breaking this down into steps. We're breaking it down into parts. That helps it to be more efficient and more effective, but it also keeps the work from being overwhelming. Perhaps in your writing history, you had an assignment where they told you in 5 days you have to turn in a 10-page paper that includes library research. And you only have 5 days to do it, and you're overwhelmed, maybe petrified. You don't have any tools to work with. This class is the purpose of it is to give you tools to work with, so that you can break it down into parts and it's less overwhelming. You have a process that you can use no matter what the writing situation, in order to end up with the most effective product for that particular assignment. That way, you've known this whole course that we have a project that's due in the module 7. We've been breaking it down into parts. And so again, we're breaking it down into parts between the draft and the final essay. So you did all the hard work in the outline. You've done a little bit more work in the draft. And then there won't be as much work to do in making revisions for the final essay if you have done the previous steps fully.
Yes.
So a full outline leads to less work in the draft. Full draft leads to less work in revisions for the final essay. Then we have some videos, and most of them are relatively short. How to be more persuasive, kind of a review of things to do with making strong persuasive arguments. Persuasive writing techniques, reviews, ethos, logos, and pathos.
That's what I was wondering about.
Link directly to the Shapiro Library databases.
A lot of
so
stuff to look at.
alphabetically. Some additional readings, and this is, I really want to highlight this. I can draw it in. This is really important information to review at this stage of the game. Quite a few of you have been out of school for a while.
Yep.
And
hello.
You haven't had to actually write anything yet that dependent on your knowledge of things like paragraphs, how to write topic sentences, etc. And so at this point, there are links to have you go back and review that information. For example, understanding the structure of a paragraph. It's a good idea to review this whether you've been out of school 10 years, or whether you just came from school at another place or just took classes last term. It's important to review because you need to remember that just like a full essay, paragraphs have specific structures. In the outline, that was set up for you. A topic sentence followed by a body, which included several different things in our outline, followed by a concluding sentence. It reviews purposes of paragraphs, gives you some examples, talks more about the parts. It's a quick read. Take the time to review that so that when you get to the point of actually having paragraphs, those paragraphs will be structured with purpose. They won't just be random sentences strung together. They'll be structured with purpose. Our outline helps you do that, but it's important that you understand, not just for this assignment, but for future assignments, how to write an effective paragraph. Then we have a section on organization about drafting introductions, body paragraphs for essays, drafting conclusions.
Okay.
All of those.
Here's my question. I know that they say in certain courses you have access back to this Macmillan book. That's an ebook. I hope to God that's true, because if you've purchased the electronic version, I know that you have to reactivate it for certain courses, but why don't you have access to it all the time? And I don't know, maybe somebody can answer this question. Can you download this? I know you can probably print it, but it's probably not going to be real printer friendly. But that's just a question I have.
Those are important parts of this essay. It's important that you understand their function and their purpose as we move into the draft. And then this last one, unity and coherence, connecting ideas with transitions, is extremely important for the stage that we're at now. Just a minute, I'll show you
to make it flow well
once you move from the outline to the draft. And one of the things that you're going to be really concerned with
that's what I need to work on.
Now that I've got all the parts in those paragraphs, are they making sense and do they flow smoothly? The topic sentences help them to make sense, so we know what the point is for each paragraph. But as you move between body paragraphs and between points within the body paragraphs, you need to use these things called transitions. There are words or phrases that make the movement from paragraph to paragraph or from point to point more smooth and logical. It makes sense to the reader why this paragraph comes before this paragraph or after this paragraph, why this point comes first, this point comes second, etc. What follows is a really, really helpful list. And if you can print this out, copy and paste it, or bookmark this so you know where to find it again, that would be very helpful. Because this chart breaks the transitions down by purpose. For instance, by time, spatial order, order of importance. You need to consider within a given body paragraph, what your purpose is. What am I trying to accomplish here? Am I describing a process? That I need to have a particular kind of transitions. I'm moving from a point to giving an example, then I need to use a particular kind of transition. This chart has them all and has the purposes that you'll be looking for. Another thing to consider is unity. Think of the points in your essay and then the support in a given body paragraph as being like a tug of war, that everything should be pulling in the same direction. And if something's not pulling in the same direction, it needs to be removed. It needs to be deleted. Okay. So if all of a sudden you insert a random thought or a random quote, review your essay, your draft, for those random thoughts that don't belong and get them out. The reader's going to notice those. I definitely am going to notice those. It doesn't work to pad things for length. It doesn't help your overall effectiveness of your argument.
People actually do that. I write too much.
In the same direction. So it's
I do. I write too much most of the time.
Again, when we talk about the use of transitions, everything needs to flow smoothly. Everything needs to follow a logical order. That's coherence. We have a sample paragraph here at the bottom that has highlighted keywords that help move through the paragraph smoothly and with coherence and unity. So take a look at that one as well. This list of transitions is extremely important, extremely helpful, not just for this assignment, for this class, but for future ones as well. Then we have a little bit of a review about writing thesis statements. You already wrote a thesis statement last week as part of the outline. this is a good time to, again, review and assess your thesis. Part of it's, what did your classmates think when they did their reviews? They made comments about your thesis. So again, this is a good place to review that. So click on all of those. And finally, audience, thinking about your sources, are they correct for this particular audience? And then a video, persuasive writing techniques, again, a review of ethos, logos, and pathos. You've got a checklist for revising your thesis. Again, a link to the library guide, a video on integrating quotations that gives you some tips about smoothly incorporating quotations into your own writing. So lots of things to click on the resources page this week. All helpful information, important information as we're making this transition into the draft. Then we come to the actual assignment. And of course, we always want to look at the guidelines and rubric. Real specific instructions as always. I really appreciate that. Things are broken down into step-by-step directions. That makes it easier for me as a reader, as a writer to follow, and hopefully for you as well. Your directions, first of all, you have a description of what it is you're doing, the requirement for one source from the project resources document, as well as two sources from the Shapiro Library. And then a list of things that you have to do in this essay. These are the requirements. There has to be a thesis statement. It has to be supported by key points. You must use a quote or a paraphrase in every body paragraph. And that was part of the outline structure for body paragraphs. You have to have an introduction and a conclusion. You have to have used persuasive writing techniques, things like ethos, pathos, and logos. And you have to cite any outside sources using either APA or MLA. None of these are optional, except for the citations. Everything listed here was already plugged into the outline. So that's the good news. You've already done the hard work. You've already gathered all these things. Now you're going to analyze them for effectiveness and then make sure that you have correct citation. Oh, good. Another chance to use my highlighter or use my drop. Important that you follow these directions. You lose points if you don't follow these directions. If you have the wrong font, if you're single spaced instead of double spaced, if you're using a mix of APA and MLA, all those things you're going to lose points for. And it's not going to demonstrate that you have an adequate understanding of how to write an academic essay that includes research and citation. So follow the directions on what to submit. There are examples of both essays in APA format and then MLA format. And I'll click on the APA one. And you do have a title page. And similar to previous examples, this one has instructions or additional information in brackets in bold. I tried to figure out a way to convert a PDF document into a Word document so I could remove it so you could see the essay without the instructions, but I don't have the software to do that. So if you could read through the essay from beginning to end and ignore the bracketed and bolded information, do that one time first, just so you hear the flow, you hear the focus, and then go back and read slowly and read for the bracketed and bold. Remind yourself, okay, this is about the open sentence, this is what the thesis should be, etc. Because that's what that information points out. But I do want you to try to read it through one time for like you were the audience, like you were the person reading this argument for the first time. Are you convinced? How does it work? How does it flow? How do they use transitions? And then again, there's references page at the end. There's also the MLA sample. these examples are extremely helpful for you to, first of all, read an essay that's complete, doing the things that the assignment asks you to do. And then also, it gives you an opportunity to compare and contrast your draft to this draft. See if you're doing all the things that this draft does. See if your format is the same as this. If it's not, then obviously you need to make some changes. Because the idea is to have a complete draft that's as effective as you can possibly get it. The expectation is not that this is going to be perfect. That's for the final essay. But the draft does need to be complete, have all the parts functioning as they should in order to demonstrate that you know how to do that, and also to give me that opportunity to provide you with feedback. We also must always look at the essay draft rubric, because these are the things that I'm going to look at. Remember that the criteria in the left column corresponds to the directions above. Read the proficient column to be sure that you're meeting all the requirements. I'm going to see if under thesis statement you compose a thesis statement that addresses the position, etc. And I go down the list and see where you fall into the descriptions. Are you in the proficient column, or are something missing, something underdeveloped, a requirement not met? Then you'll fall into the needs improvement column. And if you haven't supplied that part at all, then that does not attempt. Finally, the clear communication column. It's not just about punctuation and grammar. It's about, is your overall essay achieving the purpose for this particular audience? Is the writing clear? Are the points understandable, presented logically in an order that makes sense? Again, read the descriptions, and that will help you to have better understanding of how these things will be assessed. Okay. So I didn't want to go back to that one. Right here. And as promised, I want to show you what's going to happen with your outline. All right, well, let me.
Why does her thing look like that? That's weird.
Split screen. Okay, so I separated them out so we could see these more clearly. On this page, we have a student sample to the discussion last week for the outline. And all the parts are here. Different people use the template in different ways, included more information, less information. But this one provides the basic headings that we need to make sure that the outline information is complete. For instance, in the introduction paragraph, the hook, context, and thesis. In the body paragraph, we've got a key point in the topic sentence, counter argument and rebuttal, illustration example, explanation, analysis, etc. And then the conclusion, we have the information that needs to be in the conclusion. So what you're going to want to do is take your outline and remove all the things that made it a template. Remove the headings, the numbering, anything that was in bold. You're going to remove all of those things. And what you'll end up with is paragraphs. So here we have those same outline content transformed into the paragraphs. So we have the introduction paragraph, followed by a body paragraph, followed by the conclusion paragraph. So that's wonderful. That's so simple to do. It's going to take you some time to remove all those headings from your Word document, and then to redo, make sure that it's in paragraphs, that paragraphs are indented, etc. But then once you have this, you'll have a complete draft. Then you're ready to go back and start using the tools that are presented in this module to evaluate, how's this working? I know that I have all the parts, but how are they working together? Do I need to add transitions?
That's
do I
need
to make changes? I can't remember if I've already said this. I know I say it in the announcement, so be sure to read the announcement as well. But you want to make changes in the outline prior to converting it into the paragraphs. As I said previously, it's easier to do it in the outline you're more likely to do it in the outline. Do it in the outline and then make the transition to the paragraphs so that you know that all the quotes that are in here now are the ones that work the best. You know that the information in the introduction and conclusion paragraphs is complete. Then you're ready to start using the tools in this module to make assessments for things like unity, coherence. Do my paragraphs flow smoothly? Do I need to add transitions? And you're going to be looking at citation information. Have I got citation information? Is it correct? Is it complete? Once it's in the paragraphs, then you're better able to make assessments for that as well. So that's what it will look like once you've made the transition from the outline template to the paragraph format.
Cool.
And then you will submit right there.
You're
One
terrific.
more time to the module 5.
You're terrific. Your
page.
paper.
Always the look ahead page to module 6. I have to get the draft in. And then I don't know if I've talked about this previously. Periodically in the course, there are these sections that ask you, how did the module go? And it's an opportunity for you to give feedback.
Yeah, not
about the module itself.
This is what I did the last time, which probably was not appropriate. I was like, I wish I had more hours. Da, da, da. That has nothing to do with what they were looking for. They're looking to improve anything that's lacking within the module. So you want to have the shoulder to cry on, do it elsewhere.
But it worked for you. Again, the instructor doesn't ever see the results of those. So
thank you, Professor, for this
about it.
enlightening
courses and
summary.
Changes to improve the courses. So I'm sure that you're always taking a look at those when those are available. All right, that's everything I've got.
This is Krista Hilton, guys. She only has 7 subscribers. That's ridiculous. This was an amazing summary. Great stuff here. So that's all I've got for you. So let me stop sharing the screen. And happy studying.